Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Tommy Stiles. Tommy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Quentin. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
For sure, man. So I'm excited to chop it up with you. The first question that I like to ask all my guests just to kind of kickstart the conversation is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Favorite of all time has got to be Dorian. Just everything about his mentality and how he applied the principles of bodybuilding to his life, the monk-like mentality, the hard training intensity. That's what captured me right away. Him, and then probably Jay Cutler, big Jay fan. Just same thing, just militant, followed the plan, checked his boxes for years and years and years. So
very cool. At what age, Tommy, did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I started when I was 12. I don't know why I started. I was a pretty small kid, but my dad bought me a weightlifting set, I guess, when I was 12. It was like 115 pounds of total weight. They were filled with sand. It wasn't like, steel plates or anything. A 5-pound bar, and it had like a bench with like a leg extension attachment attached to it. And I could do like 5 or 6 exercises. So my goal was just to do all these exercises that I found in a book I had, and I wanted to use all the weight that I had, 115 pounds, and be able to do all the exercises. So that was just how I got started. And then it progressed. I didn't find bodybuilding until about 5 years later when I was 17. But in the beginning, it was just, I was small and I wanted to lift weights and be bigger. I was an athlete my whole life, played all the sports, eventually focused on baseball through my later teen years through high school. But
very cool. What book did you have in terms of strength training?
It wasn't anything anyone would know. It was just a basic fundamentals of lifting book. I mean, I'm sure there's 30 different versions of it now, but I just could see pictures of how to do things. And I'm from a small town, went to a small school. There wasn't anybody who could really show me. I mean, even my dad, he bought me that set, but my dad's probably never lifted a weight in his life. So I don't actually know to this day why I got that. It was like a Christmas present, but looking back, it's pretty cool now.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, sometimes it is kind of cool to look back at and just see how life unfolds for us. So talk a little bit, Tommy, about your childhood, just a little bit more in depth. You said you were from a small town. Where did you grow up? Talk about sports a little bit more. Maybe talk about some of those influences in terms of your parents, maybe some other mentors or adults, coaches in your life, teachers, and then we'll transition from there once we get up to about high school.
Okay. So yeah, from a small town in Michigan. It's called Bath. I graduated with about 80 kids. Small town, everybody knows everybody. Country, but not like so rural. There's no, stoplights or towns around. There's a major city, close to it, capital city. Childhood, I played a lot of sports, like I said. Eventually, when I was about 13, 14, I focused more on baseball. I played all over the nation. My parents, I had a very good childhood. My parents carted myself and my 2 younger brothers all over to play travel baseball. When I was 15, I was on a national team that went to Arizona to play. That was actually the only time I had ever been to Arizona other than when I moved here 2 years ago. So I'm from Michigan, but I live in Arizona. Was really determined to play college baseball all through high school. I mean, every weekend I was doing different camps. I was all over the state, going to different universities, doing camps, tryouts, just getting my face in front of, college coaches. That was kind of the dream. As obsessed as I am with bodybuilding, I was probably more obsessed with baseball. I would, just take 500 swings a day, whether it was in my backyard. And in Michigan, I mean, they get hammered with snow. So this would be like, I would be inside in gymnasiums, just putting in a lot of extra work, kind of like you do with bodybuilding. But baseball was life. I grew up on a ball diamond. So that was the dream. And then, through high school, I was getting attention from scouts. I had offers to play at smaller schools. But I just kind of lost the passion. I got a little bit burnt out by the time I hit my senior year, and then I had some shoulder injuries. And I guess I didn't really want to go to a small school just to play baseball. I didn't really have a vision of where baseball would go after college. I just wanted to keep playing baseball. I wasn't good enough to like go, to the major leagues or anything, or even probably get picked up in the minor leagues. But I think I just had to, once I lost sight of that dream, or once I realized it wasn't going to amount to what I thought, I just kind of was lost for a bit. But that's a bit further down the road after high school.
So talk to me about just your parents. What did they kind of instill in you or kind of pass along to you?
I'm from a blue collar family. Both my parents worked my whole life. I never had like a stay at home. I mean, my mom ran a daycare out of my house, but she worked. My dad was in the trades, manual labor. He built the house I grew up in. He can look at anything and put it to use and build it. He's just got that eye for it. Very skilled working on cars, stuff like that. So I learned a lot, just probably all my work ethic. My parents made me do hard labor when I was younger. We grew up on 16 acres. So there was yard work. There was, I had to mow a ditch that was like 30 yards long every weekend, push mow the tree lines. During the winter, we had to shovel the driveway. Like it was work. When I was younger, I hated them for making me do all that stuff because none of my friends had to do that. But looking back, I'm glad I had to live a life like that because it kind of translated into my work ethic today towards bodybuilding and just anything I want to achieve, really.
Yeah, for sure. Academics, was that something that you cared about when you were younger or not really? Was it just kind of focused on sports?
I was focused on sports, but to go to college to play baseball, you have to kind of do well in school. They don't have a lot of scholarships to give like college or basketball and football. So I was pretty smart. I wasn't like valedictorian, but I think I was in the top 20 in my graduating class. And I didn't even apply myself fully. I've naturally always I found a way to manipulate school. I didn't necessarily have to learn, but I just knew how to do well. But I'm pretty smart. I have some intelligence. I do like to learn. I like to learn about what I want to learn, not what's given to me from the curriculum. So I did well though. I think I had like a 3.5 GPA or something.
Very cool. Very cool. So now you said just a few minutes ago, Tommy, that at 17 is kind of when you got into bodybuilding. So why don't you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I was just like, my school had like internet, obviously. I didn't have internet at my house. Like I said, I grew up kind of rural. I don't think I had cable or satellite till I was like 13 or 14. We just had an old TV with rabbit ears and aluminum foil, and you could get what you could get. But so at school, it was like I was able to access the internet, and this is, the mid to early or mid 2000s, like 2000. I graduated in 09, so it was probably like 2008. And I somehow stumbled. I think I was looking up workout programs or something, because at that point, college scouts were telling me I needed to be bigger, stronger, and faster. So that's where I became obsessed with trying to get bigger. So lifting became even more something I was passionate about. And then through that is where I stumbled on bodybuilding. I think I found a Flex magazine article online, and it might have been a Jay Cutler workout. From there, I got into YouTube, and I was able to find Blood and Guts. I've never actually owned Blood and Guts. I've watched it on YouTube 36 times, but and then it was just kind of like, as baseball was going out the door, my love for bodybuilding was increasing. I was watching all the old Olympias on YouTube, anything I could find. I was just consuming all this content, whatever was available. And you got to remember, it's 2009, so it's pre-social media. And I'm in an area where there's no bodybuilders. No one else was into it, so everyone thought I was weird because I was watching this stuff in class. And when you're 17, watching other men in basically thongs on stage, the kids around you are kind of, they don't understand it. I didn't understand it. The minute I saw it, I was like, I didn't even know I wanted to do that. I just wanted to get big because at that point, I'm like, I'm 5'11", 165. I'm scrawny, but I lifted weights my whole life. So to everyone around me, I was like a bigger guy, or I was in shape. But compared to other bodybuilders or anybody with muscle, I was just a runt, scrawny. So I think it was just once I saw what the body could achieve, I wanted to do it.
Very cool. So once you graduated high school, what did that look like? Did you go off to college, or what did life where did life kind of take you post high school?
So yeah, post high school, I did go to college, and I don't blame my parents for that. They didn't go to college, so I think as parents, they just thought that was what would lead to success, is if their kid went to college. So that was the mantra I heard my whole life, was you have to go to college to be successful. So like I said, I did pretty well in school. Getting into colleges wasn't hard. I got into anywhere I applied. I went to Michigan State out of high school, which is it's a big university. I grew up 10 minutes from it. I worked, that was my first job. I was working at the dorms in the summer when I was 15, moving furniture and stuff. So I knew the campus. I mean, I got into partying pretty good once I knew baseball was done. I was lost. So I partied at MSU. So it just made sense to go there. I had a girlfriend at the time who was going there. She was a year older than me. But it was such a big school, and it was so different as far as like you have to get to your classes. And I didn't live in a dorm. You're supposed to your freshman year, but I didn't want to live in the dorms. I got a house on campus because I worked all through high school. So I graduated high school with money. Most everyone else didn't. So me getting a house actually saved me money versus living in the dorms. But when you're 18 years old trying to live in a house and you've found the lifestyle of partying, it just doesn't go well. So my house became the spot to be. Everyone, all my friends, anyone I met came to my house because I was the only one with 18 with a house. So school was on the back burner. I didn't really care how I did. I actually only went to MSU for 1 year. Horrible GPA. I just stopped applying. I didn't even care after Christmas break. I went back, but at that point I knew school wasn't for me. And like I said, I was just kind of lost. I was real into partying, real into drinking. Got arrested a few times, got in trouble my freshman year. So baseball was kind of my center my whole life. And then I didn't have anything to replace that. So, and I knew, I went to school for kinesiology. I've always had a passion for lifting and exercise, the whole science of it. But as far as like what my career was going to be, I never really had a goal. It was just always baseball. So yeah, out of that, I left MSU after my freshman year. My mom had a friend who had just retired as a battalion chief in the fire service from Lansing Fire Department. And I ended up talking with him, and he just kind of gave me the rundown of what it was to be a firefighter. And I was on board. I mean, I didn't even think I wanted to do it, but at that time, I'm 19. I basically failed out of school. It's either that or the military, because my family wasn't going to let me just be a loser, working dead end jobs. Even though I was like partying and acting like a loser, I didn't want that for myself. So I went to a community college where I joined the fire academy. Did that for 20 weeks, got my fire 1 and 2 certs. From there, I went to EMT school, became a certified EMT. Then the next year I spent completing my associate's degree at the same community college in fire science. So I'm 20, and then I turned 21 and I get into paramedic school. And paramedic school is very rigorous. It's 40 hours a week of schooling, internships all over, riding with different fire departments and ambulance companies. I did have a job at the time, but it was per diem. I was only working a few shifts a month. I lived in a shitty little 2-bedroom apartment with a buddy who had also who I had met in the fire academy, and we were going through the ranks together. I mean, looking back, this place was dirt. It was like 600 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 3rd floor. Some of the people that lived there had lived there like for 40 years. It was just it was an interesting place looking back, but at the time it was the cheapest rent we could find. So we loved it. I did paramedic school. That was, I think, a 10-month program. And then that put me at 22, I want to say. And then from there, I ended up getting my first, real job as a paramedic with like a salary and benefits and all that. Not right away, but about 6 months after. So I was just before I turned 23. And during that time, I'm still very interested in bodybuilding. I'm still lifting, but also like, I was good at school. Like I said, I was good at manipulating the system and doing well. So once I figured out how to do that, I was still able to keep partying. I was still able to keep drinking. Like I said, I needed something to be doing to prove to my family and everyone that I wasn't a loser. But I never, like looking back, and we'll get into this later, but I never actually wanted to be a firefighter. It was just, it was something to do. Hold on. To make it look like I'm doing something productive with my life at the time.
So let's talk about then kind of like the turning point in terms of your career. So like you just said, like you never really wanted to be a paramedic, firefighter, all that. It's just kind of like, you're trying to meet those outside expectations, right? And I think all of us at some point in life deal with that. Some people never realize that they're just living their life through other people's expectations. Some of us do. But what was the turning point for you, Tommy, where you're like, hey, you know what, like this isn't what I want? And where was that breaking point where you kind of started to pursue what Tommy wanted, not what your parents wanted?
Man, that was like 5 years later, really 4 years later. I still had a full career, because at the time I didn't know I didn't want to do it. It's just this is all in hindsight. So after I got that, that first big boy job, that paramedic job, I at the time I was moving around a lot. Like I have never lived out of Michigan until I moved to Arizona, but I probably moved 20 times within the state of Michigan. Probably, I think 10 different cities all across about 100-mile, span. I was everywhere. Basically, I lived my life one 12-month lease at a time. And that's kind of, I'm a little better now, but that my mindset is I don't like to be rooted down too long. I'm very nomadic. I like to move a lot. I don't have a lot of like, I'm 30 years old and I don't have like I did have a lot of the possessions other people have and value, but different points in my life, I just had to get rid of everything and restart. I've probably done that 3 times. And a lot of people would look at that as like failure, but I've just, I adopted a philosophical point of view, and I've always been pretty stoic in how I look at things. And I don't need a lot to be fulfilled, especially possession wise. So I moved the first time I moved away from like being closer to my family was right when I got that job. I moved about an hour away. And it's still close, but it's not like you can just stop in for Sunday dinner and then go back home. Like I was further away. So I joined a powerhouse that was close to where I was living. And, I'm not in like a big city. I'm still in a rural area. It's a smaller town than where I grew up. There was just a big city that had a powerhouse that was like 10 miles away. I joined that gym. I'm 23. I'm still about the same size, been lifting. I've tried every program. I've tried everything. But I just never had the means to get going in bodybuilding because I didn't have the money to, or the guidance. So I see a guy at this gym who's, to me, he's huge. He's jacked. For reference, this guy's an NPC middleweight. But to me right then, I'm like, that's the biggest dude I've ever seen in person. So I walk up to him and just start talking to him. And his name was Joe Odom. No one's going to know him that watches this podcast. He's just like the resident, he owned the gym, and he was just a resident bodybuilder that got younger people started. And I was like, look, I've never done a show. I don't know anything about how this works, but I want to try it. And this guy takes me into like the group fitness room while there's a class going on. He's like, all right, take your clothes off. And I was like, I don't know about this, but there was other people around. So I was like, all right. So I stripped down to my underwear and I just stand there. I don't even know how to pose at this point. And he just walks in a circle around me. And he's looking at me. He's like, you could do bodybuilding. And he takes me to the front desk and tells me, he's like, all right, it's gonna be $300. I'll prep you. And there was a show in 13 weeks, the NPC Western Michigan. And I started my prep the next day. He gave me a diet that he, this is before, I don't even know if coaching was huge. This is 2014. So at this point in my life, I didn't have any social media. I had gotten off Facebook, years earlier. Instagram, I hadn't found it yet. I don't even know if I had an iPhone at this point in my life. Like I was really behind the times on things, just the way I lived my life. So I started my prep the next day and I didn't even know what it meant at the time. I just knew that this guy gave me a diet. I gave him $300 and I was going to do everything he told me to do. I didn't even know the process. I didn't even know what the NPC was. I didn't know you could turn pro doing bodybuilding. I literally just wanted to try it one time. So when I look at kids, because I coach now, when I look at kids that like come to me and they have this whole outline, like I want to do a show, I want to turn pro, I want to get sponsored. I'm like, I think back to my start and I was like, man, all I wanted to do was not let this guy down and myself, but mostly him, because he told me, he's like, if you cheat on this diet, like he wrote it on a piece of paper. He's like, I won't judge you for it, but I'll think less of you for sure. And like that statement right there has stuck with me for life, because I don't know why at that moment, like maybe he was definitely a mentor for me. I just didn't want to let him down. So that was my driving force for my first show. It was like, I can't let this guy down no matter how hard it gets. And it was basic diet. I mean, it was tilapia, greens, a little bit of oats. I started that prep at like 176 and I finished at 172. So it wasn't like I didn't really have to diet that hard. It was hard for me because it was the first time I'd ever followed anything structured diet wise. It was the first time I had to like be accountable for my meal prepping and like planning ahead. And I'm a paramedic too at this time. So I'm working 24-hour shifts. I'm working on the ambulance 12-hour days on other shifts. I have a cooler with me with all my meals in it. Everyone else usually they eat out on the road or they go pick up something. And I'm this 23-year-old who's telling everyone like, yeah, I want to be a bodybuilder. And I just look like a dude who lifts weights at this point. I don't look like a bodybuilder.
So talk to me about how that first show went. And I'm assuming that, you really enjoyed the process. Maybe you didn't, maybe you enjoyed being on stage, maybe you didn't, but what was it that kind of pulled you in then after that first competition to like, hey, this is something I want to continue to pursue?
The process, the prep, I loved it. Loved every second of it. The harder it got, the more effort I wanted to give. I actually kept a journal for myself. Like I wrote in daily that whole prep, however long 13 weeks isn't as days. And like, I would really write day 1, day 2, day 3, and I would just write my thoughts. And, looking back, I have that somewhere. Looking back at that now, it was just like, it was almost like an artist who locked himself in a room until he finished a portrait. It was just like, it was almost manic, but that was what I needed at that point in my life, was just to go through something for me. As far as my physique and being like, I was shitty. I shouldn't have started a prep. I should have started a year off season, if not 2, and then thought about the stage. But, I didn't go to Joe for that. I just wanted to start. So, and I didn't even know if I'd ever do it again when I started. I just wanted to do it then. That I looked at that show as like nothing else matters other than these next 13 weeks. And that's kind of how I've always approached every show, is like, this is all that matters. I don't know where I'll be next year. I don't know where I'll be the year after that. I think it's interesting when younger kids similar to my situation come to me and they have this whole plan laid out. And it's like, you don't even know where life is going to take you in 5 years. How are you planning to where the stage is going to take you? So as far as the show, I think I took 11th out of 12th in the middleweight class. I mean, I'm 5'11", so I'm way too tall to be a middleweight. I just needed muscle. But the process, loved every minute of it. He didn't give me any carbs for like 8 weeks. I loved it. I did that show naturally too. I didn't really even, again, I was so behind the time. Like I didn't even know PEDs were, I knew they were a thing, but I was so naive and didn't know anything. And I didn't have anybody telling me anything. So there wasn't a lot of information where I was. So which was actually a good thing for me. I think if I was in today's climate and I wanted to start bodybuilding today, it's way too saturated and there's just way too many directions you can go. So I think less is more as far as information when you're getting started. And you have to do some of the wrong things to learn that they were the wrong things. But yeah, got my ass kicked on stage. He told me to go to Steak and Shake after pre-judging, have a burger, whatever. So I'm doing that. I'm with my parents. They have no idea. The stage was a shock for me. It was an even bigger shock for them because they've never seen anything like this. So, they're used to sitting in the stands while I play baseball. And my mom's like, well, you think you're going to win? And I was like, no, I know I'm not going to win, but I'm going to do another one of these someday and I'll be better. And then from there, I finished that show and like everyone, I wanted to grow. So I ate everything I could, put on 22 pounds, got up to like 195, which is the most I ever weighed. But at that time I'm on Instagram and I'm starting to pull information from places. And I think I came across Juan Morel and I saw how he ate. I was like, well, I know I had a fast metabolism. I was like, he's eating Wendy's and shit and cookies. So I probably need to eat like that too. So I was just doing all sorts of dumb shit. Nothing I would be proud of now, but that was just where I was at the time. So I took all of 2015 off. And at this time I switched from the ambulance company I was working with. I got hired on in the fire department, finally, to be a firefighter. This was an even bigger job for me than the previous one. This was what I, went to school for originally. So I get hired on at Livonia Fire Department in April of 2015. I want to say it was just before I turned 24. And so a fire department probation it's a year long and it's tough, man. The older guys, they give you a hard time. You're the probie, so you're the bottom man. All the shit work falls on you, the station duties, the cleaning duties, all that. So that was my focus, for the rest of 2015. Once I got hired was, after the first year, if they don't think you're fit to keep going, they'll let you go. So this is my livelihood at this point. Like, this is how I'm making money, paying bills. Again, I moved from where I was to another area closer to this fire department. So it's like metropolitan Detroit. There's little cities all around, not the actual city of Detroit. So at that point, I'm just bouncing around 12-month lease to 12-month lease. So that probation was really hard. There was days where I would get in my car at 8 a.m. when shift got out and just power scream as loud as I could because I was so frustrated with all the shit I was getting. Because I was different. Like, when you're a probie, you're supposed to just go with the grain. And I'm this dude that shows up with a 6-pack cooler. I'm the new guy. Like, I'm eating my own food. I don't want to eat with you guys. Like, I'm breaking all the traditions as a probie. And like, the whole department's talking about me before they even know me. And that just goes with who I've always been. I've always been a rebel. I've always walked my own path. And in the fire service, that's the last thing you want to do, especially as a new guy, because that it's a very traditional career. They are stuck in their ways for some good reasons and for some bad, but me wanting to be a bodybuilder made it a lot harder on myself to be a good firefighter and to prove myself. So I get through probation. It's 2016. I started prepping for another show. At this time is when I met Bill Toko, who I'm still close with. He was my second prep coach and probably my second mentor, which we still talk to this day. you know, he showed me he was a better option than my first experience, just because he was still competing, he was active. Not to say Joe didn't do a great job with me. Joe did, and I still to this day am thankful for everything he did for me. So we prepped for the 2016 Michigan. At this point, I do go enhanced. I go through a HRT clinic. You know, I put on my first cycle, I put on 22 pounds with ease. I'm learning how to eat. I'm learning how to be an off-season bodybuilder versus just being a prep bodybuilder. And I compete as a light heavyweight. I had 16 pounds of stage weight for my first show, just a whole different look. I took 5th in the light heavies that show. But, you know, I'm still 5'11". Like by this point, I see the writing on the wall. Like, I'm tall. At this point, I've consumed a lot more bodybuilding, and I'm following the national level of the guys that are turning pro every year. And I'm like, well, the guys that are 188 are like 5'6". So I'm 5'11". I need to be in the, you know, 240s on stage to really even ever have a shot at doing anything. So 2016, I did the Michigan. 2017, I did 2 shows still with Bill. We did an off season together. At that time, in between those shows, or in between 2016 and 2017, I switched fire departments. I went from Livonia to Birmingham Fire Department, which is still Metro Detroit. It's just further east. And it wasn't because it was a better job. It was just because it was more money. That was my only reason for switching. I actually had a couple buddies that were on that department too. So it was a much smaller department. You know, Livonia did way more run volume, had 5 stations. Birmingham had 2, had way more guys. I thought I wanted to switch, and like I said, I only switched for more money, but actually it made me hate firefighting even more. And at this time, I'm even more in love with bodybuilding. It's literally all I care about. My training, my nutrition. That's really it to me. That's my point of living at that point. And I think I'm like 25, 26, 27. So I do those 2 shows in 2017. I think I won the novice overall in one of them, and I took 2nd in the open for light heavy in both shows. And every show I've ever done, the overall winner has come from my class. So thankfully, I've always had decent classes. The local level can be hit and miss, especially now with depth, but I've always had pretty good classes. So at this point, I knew I needed to be bigger. I needed a lot of time off. I was bigger. I topped out the light heavyweights in 2017. I was like 197. And I mean, I got on the scale. I could have been chewing food and weighed in fine. Like, I wasn't like I was trying to make weight. So during 2017, I went to the Chicago Pro while I was in prep, because the gym I trained at, Bill was actually training partners with Shelby Starnes, who's, I mean, everybody knows Shelby if you're in the bodybuilding world. Shelby coached Bill, Bill coached me. So I essentially, like, I got a lot of, you know, Shelby through Bill. And we trained at the same gym. I've had many conversations with Shelby. He's given me a lot of good advice over the years too. So that was the Chicago Pro. Chicago's only about 3 hours from Detroit, so we all drove down. That happened to be Dusty Hanshaw was doing that show, who, you know, his name will come up a lot more now where we're at in my timeline, but I met him there. And at this time, like, I'm in bodybuilding, but I think it's still a hobby for me. It's something I'm obsessed with. It's definitely not something I thought I could make a career of, because I'm still a firefighter. But I met him, took a picture, whatever. And then, you know, a couple weeks later, I reached out to him to see if he would do my training for the rest of my prep, because I had started doing mountain dog training for that prep, and I just wasn't feeling it. I had tried to get into DC on my own the year before after the Michigan, and I loved it. I think I just didn't really have the guidance to stick with it, or I got lost a few times. And I read Cycles for Penny online, like cover to cover multiple times. It's actually still an open browser on my phone to this day. But so Dusty did my training for the rest of that prep. I did DC for the majority of it. And then as I was finishing up that prep, I kind of knew like I'm going to need a lot of time off and I need to be big. I need to be a freak. And at the time he was, he still is, but he was a guy who walked the walk. So I was like, it was no question. So I was set up to finish competing a 22-week prep. I took Sunday. I ate as much food as I wanted. And then Monday I was back on a plan reversing out with him. And this is November 2017. The intention was to take all of 2018 off and then come back in 2019 and do the Michigan and then do junior nationals. And that's when life started happening. February of 2018, I just had I had 3 months where I was just, I was in a bad spot at the fire department. They were, I think I was still a newer guy. I was definitely the lowest man tenure wise. And like I said, I've always had a problem with authority. I don't like being talked down to, and in the fire service that can get you in trouble. So, and like I said, I'm the guy bringing his meals to the table. I'm the guy not eating with everyone. I'm just doing my own thing always. Like the fire service is a brotherhood and I respect that. I do. But at the time I just wanted to go to work, be left alone, do my job. And then outside of work, don't talk to me. So I'm either training or I'm doing bodybuilding. I'm whatever. I'm doing my own thing. And that just doesn't jive well at a small department or any department for that matter. But so February of 2018, I have a regular 24-hour shift. And I think like the tones went off in the middle of the night and I didn't hear them initially. And I got down to the truck late. And so that obviously I got in trouble. I got written up and the captain on my shift was just frustrated with me because I had been, I was the center of attention there at that point. And I got off shift at 7 a.m. and I decided right there that I was quitting with no plan, no idea what I was going to do to make money. I just knew I was quitting and I kept it low key. I told one of my buddies on the fire department I was done. I was supposed to be back the next day for another 24. I called in. I spent the next month like burning out my time with PTO, vacation, all that. And everyone kind of knew. And then March of 2018, first week of March, I went in, sat down with the chief, put in my notice. And that was it. I was done. I left the fire service. I think I had just shy of 4 years in, plus another year as a medic at an ambulance company. So all the schooling I did, everything I had worked towards was just done like that. So I had interest in personal training just because it jived with bodybuilding. And that I started training people at the gym I was training at. I think I had like 3 clients. I had enough, with pensions and time off and all that. I had enough money to live off of. I was staying with my buddy in Metro Detroit, just renting a room for him. So my living expenses were as cheap as they could be. He was interested in bodybuilding, so it worked out. We just kind of were bodybuilding together. All the while, all this stuff is going on. I never once thought of leaving Dusty. I never once thought of, hey man, money's tight. Like I have been with him since the start, or since I started. Actually, when I told him that I quit the fire service, he actually congratulated me. And everyone else in my life was kind of just like, thought I was going through an early midlife crisis. Like, what are you doing? This is a career, pension, benefits, insurance, all of that stuff. And it didn't matter to me. So I start, personal training. I'm doing that. I start coaching. About 4 months after I quit, I had to get my appendix out. So that was kind of derailed my 2018. I was out of the gym for 5 weeks. So at that point, my plans were kind of pushed for the next year's competing plans. It wasn't really at the forefront of my mind. And then in late 2018, I got a job managing a gym and I was head trainer. So I trained people there. That became like, I guess you could call it my career for the next year. And the gym it was a good gym. It was small as far as like members. I did a lot of my training there. And I got pretty busy with personal training clients. I was, 40 sessions a week. I was managing the gym. So these were long days. These were like 12 to 14-hour days. I was just consumed living the life, but I was able to have meals when I wanted. I was able to live that bodybuilding lifestyle kind of. So it's 2019. I move out of my buddies. And all the while this is all happening, I'm just bodybuilding. I don't, I'm always thinking of target shows, but at the same time, like I don't have my life together either. I'm in survival mode. From the minute I quit the fire department, I was in survival mode. So I move out of my buddies. I move in with a friend. Same thing, still in Metro Detroit, just renting a room with her. We kind of have a falling out like 2 months after I move in, and she kicked me out of her house, and I have nowhere to go at this point. So I moved into the gym that I was working at. I just moved into a back room. There had been a fire at the gym 4 months earlier, not like a big fire, but a fire. And I stayed in the room where the fire started. So it was all gutted, the carpet's out, your shoes stick to the floor. You couldn't walk on the floor without shoes on because it was so sticky. There's a couch in that room and like a mini fridge, and I used both. Like I'm still bodybuilding. I have pre-cooked eggs that I keep in the gym cooler up front. Like at this point, I'm like Kai Green in the Overkill documentary. I am enthused with my story, but at the same time, I'm like, when you're 28, 27, 28, and you're living in the back of the gym, like it all hits you like, damn, I didn't see this when I graduated high school 10 years ago. I did that for like 2 months, and instead of writing journals, I was doing blogs on my phone at like 3 a.m. in the morning. I would sit on a tire in the back lot and just, talk to myself, talk to the universe. Whatever I was in, I knew I was going to get out of. I just had to see it through. So we're into like the summer of 2019. Still working with Dusty. He's aware of everything that's happening. At this point, Dusty and I, we're online. I'm Michigan to Arizona, but he's like the longest relationship person I could talk to just through email at that time. Like I was just keeping him up to date on where I was with life. I'm still checking in. I'm still doing what I got to do. And then right around late summer, early fall, I had an ex-girlfriend who's from Canada. We're in the process of like trying to get back together. I'm in Canada, that goes south. I'm driving back from Canada to Detroit, and I'm sitting at a gas station, and I just realized like nothing good is happening for me in Detroit, or Metro Detroit. So I had taken pictures that morning to send to Dusty, and I filled out the update form, while I was pumping gas. And I just said, I'm moving. I'm done with Detroit. Nothing good's happening here anymore. And I said I would either move to Vegas or Metro Phoenix, which is where he was living at the time, was, Scottsdale. Again, I was going to move with no plan. I just had a dream. At this time, I'd been in the gym industry and training people long enough, and I was coaching some people online. Like, I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. This aligns with, me being a better bodybuilder. I want to live this life. And basically I want to work for myself. I can't be told what to do ever again. So Dusty being Dusty just responded to the update and said, let's fucking do it. So 3 weeks later, I packed up my car. My dad just happened to be going to Nevada to camp. He had a trailer, so I threw some of the bigger stuff in there, and I moved. Like when I talk about being a minimalist, I filled an Equinox and a couple things in the back of his trailer, and that was it. That was all I had to my name at 28 years old, and I don't have much more now. But I drove. We just packed up and headed west. We had decided on Metro Phoenix, or I had, but I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I was going west. So first night we pull into a Walmart. And I think my dad and I are just having a couple beers because I don't really see my parents a ton as is. But this is kind of like a bonding trip for me and my dad. And then I pulled up I found an extended stay in Scottsdale that I could stay in that did like short-term leasing. So night one in Missouri, I figured out like, all right, I'm gonna go to Scottsdale and stay at this extended stay and I'll figure it out. So 2 days later, we get to Arizona. We get me unloaded. I'm living this extended stay. It's got like a kitchenette. So it's like bodybuilding friendly. It's all set up. I got my kitchen. They give you dishes. Anything I didn't need was in boxes pushed into the corner of a room. And like I've always done everywhere I've moved, I've been able to turn it into a little bodybuilding oasis. I got my scale on the floor to weigh myself. I got my scale on the counter to weigh out my food. Like, of all the things I don't have that most people are after in their late 20s, early 30s, like I have everything a bodybuilder needs to at least set himself up for success. That's always been a constant with me. Like, I started this journey at 23, 22. I'm 30 now. And like, I've never stopped actively trying to be a bodybuilder. Through all the shit in my life, I've always still wanted to be a good bodybuilder, or as good as I can be. And, you know, it's always, for those 3 years, like where we're coming up to now, is like, it was just about getting my personal life together to a point where I could bodybuild it the way I wanted to and find success outside of bodybuilding. So I live in that extended stay, and that place was, you know, I didn't have any friends in Arizona other than I knew Dusty. You know, he was my online coach, but it wasn't like we were boys like on that level yet. And, you know, he was a mentor for me, but he wasn't like, yeah, come to Arizona, you and I will do all these things together and it'll be great. It was like, I'm still a man. Like, I'm an adult. I got to figure my own shit out. So him and I actually got sushi the next day. But when I got to Scottsdale, I texted him. I said, just made it. And he said, welcome home. And that text still is ingrained in my brain, because that was the first time, you know, probably since childhood, that I felt like I was in the right place. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So when I look back at when I moved to Arizona and what I did, it was like, I wanted to move, but I was almost like summoned here, and not even by Dusty. Just, you know, I was so done with the way my life was going in where I was living that it was just time to change it. So throughout the 2 years I've been here, it's been 2 years this past October, you know, a lot of people have messaged me and just wondered how I did it, because maybe they feel similar about where they're at. And it's just like, I don't have a protocol for you or a plan. It was just like, I'm impulsive. That's so it's easy. I didn't need a plan. I needed to be in the fire, in the change, and figure it out along the way. But if you're you have the power, I guess that's what moving and quitting my career job showed me, is you have the power to change your story at any point if you want. You just have to have the guts to do it and deal with the repercussions, whether they're good or bad. So I did 2 months in the extended stay, and that place is where it was like a manifestation facility for me. I created all these things, I wrote notes to myself of what I was going to do. I wanted to start a YouTube channel. I wanted to start a coaching website. There's one other thing, I can't remember what I wrote, but all three things I've done. I started a YouTube channel. I do have a coaching website. And I've found a way to make a career doing what I want to do and still be bodybuilding, which was always the goal once I left the fire service. So it didn't happen overnight. Obviously, it took me, you know, time, but, you know, I left that extended stay, got my own place in North Scottsdale. So right as I'm getting all that stuff going, then, you know, COVID happens. I was working at a supplement store where Dusty got me linked up at, because he used to own the store and sold it to the guy that was owning them, Lance, who, you know, Dusty's probably my biggest mentor. Lance is second, because Lance is the owner of Muscle Factory, where I train, and where, you know, when Dusty was living here, we trained every day for a year straight. Lance and I are very close. He's someone I call a friend, and I don't use that word very often, but he's given me a lot of advice. Like, I like to listen to guys who've walked the walk and who've done things that I'm doing, or I want to do. Entrepreneurs, business people who've kind of said, you know, buck the system, and rebelled against what you're supposed to do with, you know, I was going along what the system wants, college, get a career, get the girl, all that shit. And it just didn't work out for me. So, you know, I like to listen to people when their perspectives on how they got through that moment when you decide like you're going to do everything they tell you not to do. So I'm very close with Lance. That's the owner of my gym. He had me work at his supplement shop right until COVID. And then, you know, he had to let me go just because I was a newer guy. But so COVID was hard for me just because like all the things I was doing, I didn't have access to be able to do. I couldn't train people. I couldn't, you know, so things got tight there financially. And I was just like, I find like, so January of 2020, I started a prep, hoping to get back on stage. I mean, it's been since 2017 at this point. So I'm a lot bigger. I should be a heavyweight. And we dieted for about 9 weeks. And then the whole COVID thing's kicking in. All these shows are getting canceled. I was going to compete in California. I was going to compete in Arizona. I was going to go to Tennessee to compete. Like we were changing show plans every day. And it was like, I'm 6 weeks out. I'm 22 days out. I'm 9 weeks out. And then we're like, all right, let's just chill till the fall and see what's going to happen. Because at this point, you know, COVID's new. No one knows what's going on. We did that for like a week. And I was just like, this is dumb. Like, I don't like this waiting game. Let's just push to next year. And Dusty agreed. He's like, let's waste no time. So we just went back to growing. That's 2020. And then I got sick somehow. I didn't get COVID, but I got like something with my tonsils, and like I couldn't swallow for like a week. Couldn't eat, couldn't barely drink water. I actually had to go to the ER like 3 times in a week. They didn't really know what was wrong. They were giving me antibiotics. Not really sure to this day what it was, but I ended up losing like 35 pounds. I think I ate 2 popsicles in like a week. So at this point, I'm like all the way, this is July of 2020. I'm like all the way back down to, I don't know. I got down to like 205, which is at the time, I think I was like 240. And during this time, gyms are locked down in Arizona, but I have obviously figured out a way to keep training. I have a PT who has a gym that I was training at. So I was just going there after hours. I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Sometimes I'm training, and this is just for sanity at this point, because not only are there's no public gyms, but I just lost 35 pounds in a week. I don't even want to look at myself. So I'm doing that. I'm a few weeks back into training after no training for basically a month. And Dusty sent me an email that said, I need a third training partner for social media purposes. So it was me, him, and Will. And he's like, you're my first choice. Here's our schedule. Here's our split. And, 3 seconds after I got the email, I said, done. When do we start? That's kind of the theme with Dusty and I. Like if I, send him a question or he sends me, like, it's impulsively yes, and then we'll figure it out along the way. But so I started training with them the next week. And so I'd been in Arizona, obviously, for almost a year at this point, and this is my first time training with Dusty. So for everyone thinks that I just moved to Arizona and became Dusty Hanshaw's training partner, that's not how it went down. I trained on my own. I trained with a girl that I was dating for a while. Like, it wasn't like I just moved to Arizona and Dusty took me under his wing. Like, he gave me opportunities, and I'm very grateful for those. And I tell him that, almost weekly. But I had to seize the opportunity. He led me to the door. I had to walk through it. And that's a big part of, like, we're friends now. He's my boy. I would do anything for him. But at the same time, he's still my mentor. He's still my coach. He's still all these things that he was for years before I ever moved here. So I start training with them, and then it's just, we're at Muscle Factory now because, Lance had given us the ability to train there. We're still locked down in Arizona. We've got paper on the windows. We have to park in a different parking lot. It's like a speakeasy. It was crazy times to look back on, the things we did just to be able to train every day at 11:30. So good times. So to see where Muscle Factory has grown since then, it's awesome. But we're training, things are going well. I'm getting back into growing, and I fell in love with the process of bodybuilding again. I knew I was going to compete in 2020 and 2021, but I didn't. At that point, it was like, dude, I haven't seen a stage in 3 years. I don't even know what it's like to compete. I just want to bodybuild. So got up into the mid 250s, not a very pretty mid 250s, and some of my health markers were off. Not because I was abusing anything, just because gaining weight has always been very hard for me. Holding weight's been hard for me. Like not to complain, but I am a hard gainer. Like Dusty can tell you, like the amount of food I have to consume just to grow it's a lot of work. So I've had to navigate that, digestive issues, hematocrit issues, blood pressure issues. And that's made me a better coach, because I can like show my young guys how to do it, my young guys and girls. But at the same time, I've realized that this is a 10-year game for me. I got to put in 10 years to really even see what I'm capable of. And then from there, I still, to this day, I don't talk about a pro card. I'm not one of these guys that's like pro card hungry, and I don't have road to pro as a hashtag. Like, obviously I'm trying to compete at the highest level. I want to compete with the best people around. And, I have such a high respect for the amateur level, the top guys that are placing every year. A lot of the guys that you've had on the show, Nate Spear, Turner Riddle, Cade Zook, these are all guys that like, I'm pretty good friends with Turner. We talk every day. But these are guys that I followed for years. So I'm like, these guys are higher up the mountain than me. I'm climbing the mountain beneath them, trying to get to where they're at. So while I don't like fear anyone, I do have a ton of respect for the guys that are paving the way before me. And that's what I love about open bodybuilding in particular, is like, it's a long game. Maybe in some of the other divisions, you can 2-3 years get a pro card, but unless you're genetically elite, that's probably not happening in open bodybuilding. It's definitely not happening on your first go. So January 2021, we started prep to do the Dennis James, which is in June, and then Junior Nationals, which is also in June. COVID was kind of cleared out. It looked like everything was going to happen. Everything was rolling. Prep's going smooth. Training with like, I have such a unique setup at this point now, because it was like, I'm training with my coach. He sees me in person. It couldn't be, I don't think anybody else has that process. So I have no worries. I'm just rolling. And then May comes around, and, Dusty has his hiccup, where he goes into a coma. And I'm talking to him that day. He's like, I don't feel good. I think I'm gonna go to the ER. I was like, all right, just keep me posted. You should be in and out. We'll just push. We had a pull day that day. We'll just push it. And then I didn't hear from him. I was like, all right, whatever. And then like 8 p.m. that night, I text him. I was like, how we doing, boss? And it didn't deliver. On the iPhone, it shows if it delivered. And I was like, whatever, maybe he's on airplane mode. So I go to train at like, at this point, like I'm training at like 1 a.m. sometimes, just to like not see a lot of people, because I think I'm like inside 4 weeks out. And then I get a call that, he had emergency surgery. He's in the ICU. I was like, fuck. And my first thought wasn't even like, shit, my prep. It was like, shit, my brother is down, like, and I don't know how it's going to go. So that became my first focus. And then from there, it was like, I made the decision right then and there. Like, I was never going to pull out of prep. I was always going to do the show. Like, the amount of disappointment I know he would have had in me if I called it quits. I wouldn't want to live with myself knowing that. So it was never about quitting, but it was also like doing everything I can do to be there for him, his mom, whatever I can do to be a resource and an asset during this time. That's top priority. Prepping is going to happen with him awake or without him awake. So I'm just going to keep doing what I know how to do. And I ended up prepping myself. I did have some help from, Turner Riddle. Like I said, we're pretty close. He was, somebody I was talking to daily, and Nelson Jones, who's someone I've been very close with for a few years. He was giving me pointers and just kind of like, but it was a good moment for me to like learn a lot about, how to keep my composure, and it will definitely make me a better coach in the future, having had to do that. But like I said, my main focus was just making sure I could do everything I could do to be there for Dusty. And it was like a 4-week process. At one point, it's peak week. At this point, I'm in the hospital with him, because he could have 2 visitors a day. And it had to be the same 2 visitors, and you couldn't leave. So when I was called on to go, it was like, all right, I need to prepare to be there for 8 hours. So I'm taking a cooler, I'm taking my tripod with my ring light. I'm still bodybuilding at this point. I'm going in the bathroom in the ICU to take check-in pictures to look at for myself. And then I'm deciding what to do during peak week. It's, we're 48 hours out, and I'm carbing up, watching the most important person in the world to me at this point struggling to breathe. And it just puts it in perspective of like, competition prep is a voluntary choice. Any type of quote unquote suffering I might have ever felt became obsolete in that moment, because I'm watching him just gasp for air. And it's like, I can't go, without carbs for a day. Like it doesn't exist. So it just gave me a whole new perception of what actual suffering is. And like, I love prepping. I love it when it's hard. So the fact that I have to eat so much and it's not as hard as it was when I was younger, it actually, that part was hard for me to cope with. But so I do the Dennis James, I took 3rd. It's the result that, is the best I was going to do given the circumstances. At this point I was a heavyweight, so I weighed in at like, I want to say 221 for that in juniors. So I'm close to the top end of the heavies. And I know that like I need to be a super. I need 20 pounds. So, I did the Dennis James. 2 weeks later, it's junior nationals. I've spent the last however many years focusing on getting big, because I knew I was tall and I knew I needed to be bigger. I've always gotten in pretty good shape condition wise, but size has always been my knock when it comes from feedback, both for myself, whoever I'm working with. I just know like I'm not big enough. Like it is a bodybuilding show. You need to be bigger. But I didn't practice posing nearly enough. Because I'd pushed food for so many years straight, my midsection had started to expand. So, and I wasn't doing the work to train that. So that's something I had to own. And after you finally see yourself on stage, you're like, damn, I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing. So it was finally a good wake-up call. It was good to get back on stage, and just now I have a whole different approach to how I'm bodybuilding. Not completely different, but like I said, once you see yourself on stage next to other people, and then I could see like, all right, I'm actually, frame wise with like the width of my shoulders, height, all that, like I'm one of the biggest dudes on stage. So now it's just about refining each muscle group and continuing to get bigger, getting more muscle maturity, connecting with, certain muscle groups a little bit more, and just staying on the same page I'm on. But I understand that like to be a super and to be an in shape super and, to weigh 240 to 245 on stage, I understand where I have to get to in the off season. We're, 270 to 280, and I can't abuse myself with drugs to get there. And I can't, I got to do it slowly or the midsection's going to, blow out again. So that is kind of where I'm at right now. Dusty was able to like, he got discharged from the hospital in between the Dennis James and juniors. So he was like coherent enough to like guide me in. And that was cool for me, just to like, after 4 years of everything we've been through, from online coaching, me quitting the fire department, me moving to Arizona, us being training partners, to becoming like, he's one of like a few people I actually call a friend, and it's the same for him. Like everything we've been through, for him to finally like us to see a show through. And then right after prejudging at juniors, where like I was a heavy and I was competitive, but that was just where I wanted to see where I was on a national stage. And like I said, I just needed to be bigger. I also needed to, I was the tallest heavy, so I need to be a class above. I need to be a super. I just need more time. So, it's a long game when you're tall. And that's what I tell younger people is like, if you think you're going to get there in 2 years, like you could drug your way there and Russian roulette. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it is a long game. But my bodybuilding path has been interesting because, 3 years into it, I did 4 shows, and then I fell off the map as far as competing, but I kept bodybuilding while I was getting my life together, building a business, starting a YouTube, all that stuff, like making a career. Because the last thing I want to do is be a broke bodybuilder. You know, compete. Maybe I do get a pro card, but what do I have going on in life outside of that? So, you know, right after prejudging at juniors, Dusty and I talked, and, you know, the plan was already in place of what's next. And that's kind of how it always is with me. Like, I always am shooting for something, whether it's a show date or a month, whatever. I know what I'm doing, but if I don't feel like I'm going to be my best when that time is coming, then I'll call an audible and I'll push it further back. So that's kind of where we're at right now is, you know, he's in South Carolina, I'm here. You know, Muscle Factory, that's where I train my clients. I'm coaching. I got all these things going, business wise, which excites me just as much as bodybuilding. And I still do my work. I still train. I love training. You know, part of my job is eating. I'm an off-season bodybuilding is harder for me than prep. So that's where I really got to be precise. That's really where I got to nail everything. And that's what I'm doing right now is just focus on growing, and then we'll see where, you know, 2022 leads. You know, by May, I'll make a decision if I'm going to compete in 2022. And if not, then I'll just push to, you know, June of 2023. So I have a kind of a map laid out. It's just going to be based off how I look and where I think I'll be, because I don't compete just to compete. I definitely want to be competitive, and I want to, you know, I want to be my best, and I want to compete with the best.
Excellent. So a couple things I want to touch on here. In terms of business, because it's, you know, I feel like, you know, obviously I followed Dusty for a long time. He's been a guest on the podcast, and, you know, he's the first one to say, like, you know, like it's a long game, and, you know, he's very savvy in terms of business and bodybuilding and combining the two. So in terms of business, Tommy, do you have kind of like a vision or a goal or a focus in terms of what you want to build with your business or through business?
Yeah. And that's another part of like Dusty being my mentor is like on the business side of things. If I was ever going down the path where I was going to be a broke bodybuilder, you know, he would slap me. So I do have a vision with coaching. You know, I want to get, and like I work with competitors, but the bulk of what I do is lifestyle. Not that I have interest in both, but when I compete, like I said, life kind of stops. I'm still like functional and do all the things I need to do as a human, but I'm locked in on that prep. So if a competitor doesn't give me that as a coach, it's kind of hard to work with me. If I want it more than you, I'm not the coach for you. So I do work with competitors. I do, you know, competition preps. I find that I work well with a lot of younger, new people, green people who don't have bad habits, don't have any habits really. And maybe they're just falling into that trap of like all the misinformation and all the overabundance of information. So I've been doing this a while now. I still have a ton to learn. I don't think I know everything, but I can take a new person and show them a path that's a lot straighter than the one I took for sure. And I think my story, you know, people can resonate with like, okay, this guy started as a 170-pound middleweight soaking wet, and now like the next time I compete, I will be a super heavyweight. So I will have competed in 4 different classes. That to me is bodybuilding, growing every year. And maybe people have different ideas of, you know, symmetry, and I hear all the comments about my midsection or whatever. Like I will fix that. I am doing everything I can to make that better. But at the same time, like I said earlier in this podcast, like when I was 17, when I saw Dorian, when I saw Jay, they were freaks. That's what drew me into bodybuilding. I didn't even know the stage was a thing. I just saw them in tank tops training, and I was like, that is what I want to do. So at the same time, like I'm doing what I love. Like I fell in love with it 13 years ago, and that love has only grown since. I've never had a moment where I was like, man, I don't know about bodybuilding. Even living in the back of the gym, even when I'm like wondering how I'm going to pay my bills after I quit the fire service, at no point in my life has it ever been like, I got to stop bodybuilding and figure some stuff out. It was like, no, I'm going to keep bodybuilding, and everything else will get ironed out along the way. So that being said, I do have a vision with my, you know, I do train clients. That's more of a passion project now. 15 to 20 sessions a week. The minute I start to feel like that becomes work or I get burnt out on it, I take less people, because I do really enjoy training people. I like to see that look on people's faces when they're like going past a limit that they wouldn't have gone for with themselves, but they trust me to take them there. And then online coaching, I probably have like around 30 clients, maybe 25, give or take. But so the goal is to build that. I'd like to have, 45 to 50 clients for myself. I don't think I could scale it any higher with the way I coach and, the amount of detail I give, the amount of time I give. And that's not a knock on guys who take more. I think there's a lot of better coaches than me who can work with more. Just the business I've built and the model I've built and the relationships I want to have with the people I'm working with, that's where I can scale to. From there, I would, maybe I start and like have a couple people underneath me and build a coaching team, but I don't know. I might just keep it to myself. And the goal is to, create a 6-figure coaching business for myself, coaching personal training. And I have, 2 to 3 years. That's where I want that to be. And then, I have some investment stuff I'm doing, and I'm not an expert on crypto or real estate or any of that stuff. I get advice from experts and I let other people make decisions and I just put money into it. So, that's kind of where I'm at with business. Dusty and I are always, we work together, like, Transcend, the shirt I'm wearing, we're both sponsored through them. So we do some, he's who pushed me to start a YouTube. He's given me some opportunities to be on podcasts. Scott McNally with Think Big Bodybuilding Media is a very good friend of mine from back in Detroit. So the fact that they linked up and then I was able to be on that podcast recently, and I've done some work with Scott. So just trying to keep my name out there and grow and help as many people as I can. That's the biggest part of my mission. And whatever business opportunities I find and can create from that, then that's even more of a win. But coaching is the brunt of my income right now, some investment stuff. I do want to get like some apparel going as part of my brand. Like I said, I created a website. And the website I kind of have slacked on as far as putting information on, just because I was getting the YouTube going. Now that the YouTube's pretty stable, I will get back into pumping out information on my website as far as like basically logging everything I do, plus just some different articles and stuff for people to, take what they can from, as far as like off-season eating, psychological stuff, mental stuff. I'm very interested in how the human mind works. And I feel like the bodybuilding definitely challenges your mind. It's not that the things we do are hard, like eating chicken and rice and training, but you do have to unlock some mental barriers to keep going further into it. So with myself, I just, I want to keep pushing further into it. And I want to be able to be a resource for others to find a way to push further into theirs. So that's this kind of stuff I'll be putting on my website. Right now, the website's totally free. At a certain point, I'll work it into where it's like a subscription base once I feel that it has the value that warrants subscription base. But right now, like, I'll just pump out information for free as I make time for it. And it's just basically a place for me to log everything I'm doing with training, nutrition. Keeps me accountable too. I have to, like I said, I have these timelines of like November of next year for competing, or June of 2023. So when you have like 18-month to 2-year plans, you got to break it up into chunks. And for me, the best way to do that is just to show you the whole process year round. Like, I don't disappear off of social media when I'm not lean. Like, I'm still wearing cutoffs and I'm fluffy. Like, it is what it is. That's bodybuilding to me. It's getting lean is easy. I mean, and I say that because I've done it, but when you need to like keep pushing in an off season, 8, 9, 10, 11 months in, that's true bodybuilding to me. That's where the true mental fortitude comes in. So I'm just trying to show as much of that as possible. And this is just what I like to, the things I'm doing for business are what I enjoy. That's my fun. And like Dusty's kind of the same way. Like, this is what we love to do. Training is the number one thing that brings me joy. So while it's all bodybuilding as a purpose, it's a byproduct of training. It's just a love for training. So Him and I have some stuff planned for YouTube for early 2022, collaborating some stuff, and then just basically feeding off each other. The amount of like, I don't want to say advice, but just he mentors me when he doesn't even know he's doing it. It's just indirect. Like every conversation we have is a chance for me to take something from him. And obviously, you know, he's older than me, so I have looked at him like an older brother. I look at him like a mentor, but also like I'm a friend too. If he ever needs anything, I go out of my way to do it. Like I said, I would do anything for him. So just when you're surrounding yourself with people who are above you on the mountain where you want to get to, that's where I find, you know, your best path for success can come, is when basically everyone right now in my life that I'm surrounded by is better than me, or they're higher up than me. And that's the way I like it. I don't like to be like the big fish in the gym, or the friend that makes the most money. Like, I like to surround myself with people better than me, because that just keeps me leveling up to be better.
Was it hard for you when Dusty decided to move out of Arizona, or do you think now that he's been gone for a little bit, it's actually been something that's maybe caused more growth in your life?
That's a good question. It wasn't hard. The whole time I was training, you know, anytime I trained with Dusty, but during that whole process where it just became like, all right, 11:30, I'll see you every day. I knew that there was an expiration date. Everything has an expiration date. Bodybuilding, competing, like, I know the way I am right now, I doubt I'll be, you know, pushing to be 280 in 10 years. Maybe I will, I don't know. But knowing me, I know that there's an expiration date before that. So I always keep that at the forefront of my mind, and it helps me stay present and stay grateful and appreciate the moments that I'm in. Tomorrow's not promised. So if Dusty and I were training legs, like, there would be moments like while he's doing his set, or just like while we're loading plates, where I just try to like have a out of body experience, and I try to look down on what's happening and be like, that's why I'm so thankful we have so many, you know, training videos together. And Dusty and I, we might have like 2 pictures where we're actually like taking a picture together. That's not really my thing or his, but the amount of stills that I can pull from a training video where him or I are in it. And I remember that moment because I took the time to step outside of myself and think like, dude, you know, because with Dusty, it started, I was a fan back in the iForce days. Like, I found him on Instagram like 8 years ago. So it's like just the come up of the whole thing, to go from a fan to a client to, all right, now we're friends, to, all right, now I'm literally holding you upright so you can pee because you're in the ICU and you don't know what day it is. Like, just the progression of all of that. Like I said, I've said it a few times now, like, he is my brother and I would do anything for him. His mom and I, like, we talk, like, it's just when you don't have that type of dynamic you only get that type of dynamic with a few people in your lifetime, I feel. And just to know that, like, Dusty's not from Arizona originally. I'm not from Arizona originally. You know, Lance, the guy I was talking about earlier, he's not from Arizona originally. Arizona is just a place where a lot of people end up, and we all just connect somehow. So that's another thing I love about the state. But it was hard initially, just because not because I don't know how to train without him, but like I said, like, training is the most fun thing I do. So he was a part of that. So, you know, I had to learn how to train with headphones in again. I had to learn how to, like, what music do I like to train to? Kind of just because I'm very routine oriented. That routine was gone. It was like, all right, I'll train with you at 11:30, which means 11:40, because him and I are always 10 minutes late together. Like, that's on time. Maybe we're drinking a Red Bull. Maybe we'll both use our guns. We'll get warmed up. It was just so systematic. Like, that was a part of my life, and that part was gone. So there was probably a little bit of an adjustment period. But to answer the second part, yes, it absolutely did help with growth, because I feel Dusty, you know, indirectly has been grooming me to be what he is to Arizona, or to be what he is to Muscle Factory. And it was almost like a maturation point for him to leave Arizona to me for now, while he went to South Carolina. And I'm almost sure, like, if he were on this podcast with us, he would say the same thing. Like, that is what he, I am a part of his legacy indirectly. Like everything he's taught me still stays with me. Even if something bad would have happened and he wouldn't have made it through that coma, like, Dusty Hanshaw would live on through me, because he's played such an integral part of my come up, my growth. So I do think it gave me a chance for more growth. It gave me a chance to, because everybody outside looking in probably always saw me as, like, Dusty's little training partner. But, I have my own mind. I do have my own personality, my own, like, we don't, it's not even like we don't agree on everything. We don't disagree on much, but I do have my own brain and my own way of thinking. Like, all of my coaching is independent of him. I've learned a lot of things from working under him for so long, but also, like, there's things I've learned on my own that I've applied to my own coaching. Same thing with personal training. So I think it gave me a chance to, like, make sure I was creating my own vision, my own brand, and just, showing who I am too, not just like being under Dusty. So it had positives and negatives, but he was just back in town recently and we trained together, and it was just like, from the minute I walked in the door and I saw him and we started loading plates up, like, it was just, we didn't miss a beat. Like, it's like, we'll always have that ability to flip that switch and be training partners. Like, I've trained with enough people to know that, like, I've trained with good people too. And it's like, when Dusty and I train together, it's just different thing. So I'm always appreciative now it's to the point where, like, anytime we get to train together, I'll be extra grateful for that moment. And I'll make sure I'm present during that session, and we'll definitely be recording it. Just, one, to show people, but two, like, this is such a big part of my life, like 10, 15, 20 years. I want to be able to look back and be like, man, I don't even remember what it feels like to be like that now, but it's cool to look back on.
I love that, man. We've been going for almost 90 minutes here, Tommy. So I'm sure we could probably go for another hour or two, but I do want to wrap it up, be respectful of your time. A couple more things. Bodybuilding as a whole, what has it given you as a human being, as a man?
It's shown me what the results of hard work are, and not necessarily obviously in placings or trophies, pro cards, none of that. Like, there's nothing bad that can happen from working your absolute hardest towards something. Not one bad thing you can take from that. And that could be something as small as, like, going into the gym on a day you don't want to. Like, I guarantee you won't leave that gym that day pissed that you went in and worked out. You will feel some sort of improvement in yourself. So I would say just, the hard work leads to good feelings for yourself. It leads to positive self-esteem. It's taught me the process of patience. Like I said, it's a long game for me. It's taught me, bodybuilding's hard. There's ups and there's downs. It's taught me not to quit when things get really down. Like I said, I've always stuck with bodybuilding, no matter how bad my personal life's gotten. Bodybuilding is the one thing that I've, like, held on to like an anchor. So, I am, it's hard when people say, like, there's more to life than bodybuilding. Like, yeah, there absolutely is. And I like a lot of things outside of bodybuilding, but I'd be a liar if I said bodybuilding isn't a part of my identity, because it absolutely is.
Love it, man. That's beautiful words. Why don't you share, you've been in the game, it sounds like, for many years now, in terms of, like, in that bodybuilding lifestyle, looking back, kind of like, when you started, that young person that's listening, that's watching this on YouTube, what do you want to say to your younger self, or to that young person that's tuning in right now, in terms of maybe something that you wish you would have known when you started within bodybuilding?
When I started my competitive, or when I found it when I was 17?
Just like when you started, like, competitively, and then maybe a listener or somebody on YouTube that's watching, that's kind of at that same place where it's like, they don't know a lot, but they know they kind of want to move in this direction with bodybuilding?
Competitively, it's, hire a coach, hire someone that's been where you want to go. And that, it doesn't have to be the most prestigious coach. It could be like for me, it was that guy that was at my gym that was, nobody knows his name that's watching this. I guarantee you that, maybe one person, but he played such a pivotal role. Without him, nothing else of my story matters, because I never would have got started. So you need that guidance. I know a lot of guys back in the day did it on their own, and I respect that. I think that's awesome. And even anybody today that wants to try that, I just think the straightest, path between 2 points is the one with least resistance. And if you have someone who's already walked that path, guiding you on that path, that's going to be the one with least resistance, rather than you try to, fumble your way through it and figure it out. You might learn a lot for the future, but you might absolutely hate it and walk away from something you could potentially love. So, hire a coach. I didn't get started till the day I hired a coach, and I started prepping the next day. And that translates into my next advice. I had interest in bodybuilding for 6 years before I started. Now, I was getting my personal life and my finances in order. And I do think it's important to have, a little bit of an income before you start bodybuilding. But at the same time, I could have learned a few things along the way had I hired someone earlier, rather than trying to take information from magazines. And then now it's like you're going to be taking information from social media. So, me posting my diet and you just trying to emulate that diet, that's not going to work for you. And that goes for anybody that's doing that. I share a lot of information. I share a lot of it for free, because I know that it's not the information that matters. The application of the information is what matters. That's where coaching comes in. So, guys like Turner, guys like Dusty, guys that I respect and that are my friends, but also they've walked the walk. They assume the identity of a bodybuilder. Those are the people that you want to hire to be your coach, to be your mentor. Because I think guys like that take that word coach, and it means so much to them to be your coach.
Excellent, man. So we're gonna finish it up here. I want to kind of just give you the platform, Tommy. Anything just in closing, and any final words, any final thoughts that you want to share at this time? I want you to do that. Also, where can people find you on YouTube? Where can people find you on Instagram? Any sponsors, anybody else that you haven't already shouted out, feel free to shout out. So the floor is yours, and then I'll close us out.
Yeah, not too much more to add other than, I appreciate you having me on. Kind of helped me remember my story, having to talk about it from start till now. So I do appreciate getting the platform to talk, and hopefully people can take something from it and apply it to their own journey. Sponsor wise, Animal, Transcend, which is my hormone clinic. They take care of all my blood work. I also use a variety of peptides and different things for them. So I cover quite a bit of the information about them on my Instagram, which is Stiles2, Stiles. And then Leviathan Nutrition, I'm an ambassador with them as well. So health supplements, not the sexiest thing, but if you're in this game for the long haul and you are enhanced, it's pretty much vital. So I try to cover, I do a lot of informational posts on stuff that I'm using, and stuff that's helping me along my path, fix my blood work, do whatever I got to do to keep pushing this thing further while keeping my health intact to the best of my abilities. My website is stylesstrength.com, STILES. That's where you can find my log of what I'm doing training nutrition wise. I was putting some, my monthly check-ins up there. I haven't in the last couple months, but I will get back to doing that, as well as I was talking about some informational articles and just different things to help the younger person trying to find their way, or anybody for that matter. But my YouTube channel is just Tommy Stiles. I put up 1 video a week right now. I'll be increasing that to 2, probably by January, but maybe a little earlier. training videos, day in the life, food stuff, just anything people want to see. You can reach out to me on there or, you know, on my Instagram and tell me what would help you. And that's the main goal with YouTube. It's a place for me to be creative and show my life. Bodybuilding isn't the most exciting thing to watch, but you know, I can show you how I do it and things I've adopted over the years to create my systems and my routines that have given me success. I don't have any other social medias, just Instagram, YouTube, and my website. So that covers that, and that covers my sponsors.
Very cool. Thank you, Tommy. I greatly appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
For sure. You're very welcome. All of you who are tuning in once again to another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, I just want to say thank you to you, because if it wasn't for you, the podcast wouldn't exist. Just a few things I want to touch on before we close out today's episode with Tommy. If you are on YouTube and you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button and also hit the subscribe button. It's important that you guys subscribe to the podcast if you're really enjoying Behind the Muscle podcast, because I release all these episodes first on YouTube, and then I shoot them out to all the other podcast platforms. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes a week. I'm just working hard to get you guys as much content as possible. So if you want to stay up on that content and all of these awesome interviews, these great guests, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. One other thing, if you're on YouTube, please go down into the comment section and just leave your favorite takeaway from Tommy's story. There's a lot to glean from Tommy and his bodybuilding life. So go into the comment section on YouTube, leave something that you gleaned, leave your favorite part of our conversation today. I love getting those comments. I love getting the feedback from all of you. And then finally, I just would ask if you guys would please take this episode specifically and share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Tommy, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and you found great value in it. And then, as always, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.